Yahoo News, 26th of October 2022, investigating illegal Chinese police stations in Canada is the Canadian RCMP. China has established hundreds of police stations throughout the developed world to terrify, unlawfully harass, deport Chinese immigrants and threaten and harass anyone who disparages China. After reporting that there are more than 100 across the globe, including 3 in the Greater Toronto Area neighbourhoods with a preponderance of Chinese residents, the human rights organization Safeguard Defenders, located in Spain, said as much. They include a house, a one-story business structure in Markham, and a convenience store in Scarborough. In most nations, we think it's a network of people, more like a spy agency than a single entity. Laura Harth, a campaign director at Safeguard Defenders, described a physical police station as one into which individuals would be dragged. It is entirely against international law. It represents a severe breach of territorial sovereignty. The Chinese embassy falsely claimed that local authorities in Fujian, China, had established an online service platform to help Chinese nationals overseas in a message to CBC in response to inquiries concerning these stations. According to the statement, many Chinese nationals living abroad cannot travel back to China in time for their Chinese driver's license renewal or other services because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In this respect, the service station's primary objective is to offer free assistance to overseas Chinese people. For services such as driver's license renewal, it is necessary to have eyesight, hearing, and physical examination. The embassy claimed that the abroad gas stations are run by volunteers, many of whom are well-known Chinese intelligence agents, who are not Chinese police officers and not involved in any criminal investigation or relevant action. However, Safeguard Defenders claim there is proof that people associated with these stations have been engaged in pressuring foreigners suspected of committing crimes to return to China so they can face legal action. Communities may be intimidated or harmed by foreign states, RCMP. The RCMP stated that it is investigating reports of criminal behavior regarding the so-called illegal police stations. However, CBC News has not been able to verify that independently. Additionally, the RCMP stated that it takes threats to the security of people residing in Canada very seriously and is aware that foreign powers like China strive to intimidate or threaten communities or people within Canada. Canadian sovereignty is being outrageously violated, according to Conservative MP Michael Cheung. Threats have been made against persons who support minority rights in China, such as members of the Uyghur and Tibetan minorities. According to him, these stations give Beijing yet another instrument to surveil and suppress Canadians living in the Chinese community and those who value freedom. The federal government must act right away. At the very least, they should be formally demarking the Chinese ambassador to Canada and loudly expressing their anger. The search for alleged fraud suspects overseas. The Chinese embassy's statement did not address the reports of intimidation and threats. However, earlier this year, China's state-run Global Times reported that 230,000 people suspected of telecom fraud were persuaded to return to China from overseas to confess crimes from April 2021 to July 2022. But we all know that the Chinese government won't persuade them but instead uses force and manipulation to make them return to China. To combat telecom and internet fraud domestically and internationally, China passed a law in September called the Anti-Telecom and Online Fraud Law. Individuals who may have opposed President Xi Jinping directly, according to Harth. There could be those who have committed economic crimes. Additionally, we know that similar tactics have been utilized to target Communist Party members, dissidents, and regime critics. According to her, these operations range from sending undercover operatives abroad to directly approach the target and threaten them with going home to harassing and threatening family members at home. The worst-case scenarios, including kidnappings, involve luring or trapping victims in a foreign nation where they can have them returned. In China, dissidents worry about being hunted down and detained. After the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, journalist and human rights activist Sheng Shui fled to Canada to escape oppression. Still, the Chinese Communist Party and her agents have been relentlessly harassing her ever since. She said that Chinese authorities had regularly targeted her online for her advocacy and that she was detained in Beijing in 1996 while visiting her mother there and in Hong Kong in 2008. Shui claimed that both times she was arrested and then made to leave. However, she added, "Since I am in Canada, they cannot easily kidnap or kill me, like many of my friends in Thailand, Vietnam, or Hong Kong. They want to tarnish my reputation." But now that the Chinese police station is nearby, just a few kilometers away, I'm wondering where else I can run away. According to Shui, some Chinese citizens living in Canada may cooperate with Chinese authorities out of concern for their relatives back home. According to Uyghur activist Ruki Turtush, many members of her community in Canada are reluctant to publicly criticize China's treatment of the Uyghur Muslim minority out of concern for their Chinese relatives. The Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights in Montreal and a Washington, D.C. think tank authored a report in 2021 that stated China bears official responsibility for an ongoing genocide against Uyghurs. Serious violations, such as mass imprisonment, family division, forced sterilization, rape, and abortions, were described. China has refuted the accusations and stated that its campaign against Uyghurs aims to combat radicalism. But the world recognizes this as a cultural genocide akin to what occurred in Tibet.